Hi everyone, my name is Lexii Orth and I'm a national artist for Colors by Gina. Today I'm going to be teaching a few different techniques on balayage. I thought it would be fun to use a mannequin head and show a few different ways to do balayage. Now traditionally balayage is freehand painting, which I'm going to show that technique, but I also have a few different techniques I use, whether I want to control the hair a little bit more and get more brightness, or whether I want it to be a little bit more saturated but still give that traditional balayage feel. So I'm going to be using the mannequin today to demonstrate those different techniques and show you how they can be used and why they could be used. So today, for all the balayage techniques I'm going to be showing, I'm going to be using the Lightening dust with Colors by Gina 30 volume color producer. And this will be great because you'll see how the same formula can give a different end result based off the technique we're using, and when that might be convenient and save you time to use a certain technique, and when you'll want to use another technique if you're needing more brightness or more control. All right, so I have my Lightening dust mixed up over here. I like to mix it 1 to 1.5 ratio. You can mix this Lightening dust 1 to 1.5 to 1 to 2 ratio, depending on the consistency you like and the technique you're doing. Maybe it calls for a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner consistency. I love the cool blue tone. There's lavender and chamomile in the Lightening dust that helps soothe any irritation and gives it that nice blue base that cools down any unwanted warmth as we're lifting. So the first technique I'm going to show is going to be a teasy light around the face. So a traditional balayage typically is freehand painting, where we're just taking our lightener and we're freehand painting on the hair. Over time, we've kind of created different techniques that work for different situations. So when we're wanting a little bit more brightness, because sometimes those open air techniques, when we freehand paint, they're not as controlled, so the hair doesn't get as light because there's not a foil or a packet to contain the hair. It can cause bleeding on other hair. So there's a way to do that. But sometimes for certain areas like around the face, it can be useful to use a teasy light technique. So to do that, I'm just going to take this first little 1/4 inch subsection. Now on a doll head, it can be a little hard. If you've ever worked with a doll head, you already know what I'm talking about. They have these really awkward geometric partings with the hairs in them. So just take a little bit, and I just do a normal stitched weave here. And then I take the hair about mid shaft, midway, and I just kind of tease it down. Now this doll head, the hair is a little different, so I'm gonna kind of go a little bit further down to create that nice tease up here. And I'll go get the camera and show here a little bit closer in a second. So after we have that, I'll take the foil, slide it right underneath, and paint onto the hair. Okay. Now up here, so there's not as harsh of a line. So up here, so there's not as harsh of a line. We've already done the teasing. That helps soften it down a little bit, but also we want to ensure that this is nice and organic and soft. So I like to go in there and just feather it out a little bit more on top of that. When we're folding it, we also want to be mindful that if this hair up here has not been colored, and we take this hair down here that has been colored and plop it right on top, that's obviously going to not be the look we're going for. So we're going to want to fold this in thirds. So there's a bifold and a trifold. This is what we call a trifold, and this is when it's useful in situations like a teasy light, or in situations where you're avoiding that scalp area, you'll want to do that tri-folding foil technique. All right. And then I'll take the next section, again about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch section. All right. And again, we'll just do a weave, a normal stitch weave. All right. And again, we'll just do a weave, a normal stitch weave. Pull the drop out. And then, like I said, this mannequin head, the hair I found I've needed to go a little bit more towards the ends to get that nice tease in the base. And once that's combed out, when we wash the hair, it'll create a nice softness. So that's why we do that. So again, I may come in and saturate this hair, but I'm going to be mindful if I've created a line to go in and soften it out really organically. So you can see I've kind of made a W. So I kind of pull it in like that. And try folding so we don't mess up this area that we've spent so much time to create a nice blend on. And closing that pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 more just like that around the front fringe here, just to create that nice pop around her face, and then I'll go ahead and show you the other techniques. You can even go in to start and create that W. And that'll help soften it from the very beginning. So when you lay the lightener, you could lay it that way and then go in and saturate it out. And I love this lightener mixed in this ratio. It's just super creamy, easy to work with, as you can see. So these are the packets up close. You can see that teasing right on the base. Okay, and I'll open one of these packets so you can see the inside. So you can see that nice W shape and how it'll help soften that and blend it out and look very natural, while also giving the control of the foil so we can get the most lightness while still maintaining that balayage technique. All right, so I did 4 packets around the face so that we can see what this technique will look like, and I think this technique will be best around the face because it's going to give the most lightness. Now the next technique I'm going to show you is a traditional balayage technique. All right, so around her hairline, I did the foil technique of balayage, if you will. That's going to give the most control. It's going to give the most lightness. So I thought that technique be appropriate around the face because that's super trending, lightness, brightness around the face. The next technique I'm going to show is a traditional balayage technique. And that's where we are freehand painting, leaving it open air to process. And I'm going to show you a few different techniques and ways to do that. So I showed you a way to go ahead and create that balayage technique using a foil to give you more lightness and more control. But I'm going to show you how to do a traditional balayage over here. So when we do that, typically I just do it really organically. I'll just grab pieces I want. So you can use a bigger brush, or I also grabbed this smaller brush, which can give a little bit more control. And I like when the lightener is very thick like this. I hope you can see how thick it is, where it's not runny at all. And that's really nice for open air balayage like this, because it will prevent it from being runny and bleeding onto the other hair we don't want. So I pick up kind of this little triangle section. It's kind of just very triangular all the way around. And I hold it out at about, I would say, a 45-degree angle, and I paint. Okay, and this is why we want it really nice and thick. Now to saturate these ends, I like to use the back of my hand as a board, but you can also use a board, which I'll show. So we'll want to make sure there's no excess, but it's nice and saturated. Up here towards the top, I just kind of brush up to soften it. Okay? So again, just grabbing a really triangular organic section. And that's the thing about balayage, is it is very organic. Traditional balayage is meant to look very sun-kissed, very natural. It's not supposed to look super dramatic or be very transformative. It's supposed to be a subtle technique. Now, you know, through time, we want more and lighter and brighter, and so that's why we have the foil techniques as well. But when you are doing this open air technique, remember that it is going to be a very subtle and natural look. So if you want to use the board, you would just use the board instead of the back of your hand, again at that 45-degree angle. And I just use the board to paint. I kind of use the board and brush down. So I move the board down as I'm brushing, just because it's not the biggest board and her hair is a little longer. And then up here, again, brushing up. So remember, when you do this, you want it to be nice and saturated. So you don't want to take a section that you feel you won't be able to saturate all the way through. If the section isn't saturated all the way through, it'll leave spottiness, it'll leave unevenness. So we want to make sure that whatever section you're taking, you feel it's fully saturated. If the client has finer hair, you'll be able to get away with a bigger section doing balayage, versus if the client has thicker hair, you'll need to take a lot smaller sections. So some people like a board. I personally like the back of my hand. Some people, I feel like they've said that that can be messy depending on how you work. They feel like they get it everywhere. So just try both techniques and see what you like. Another technique that I'm going to show today that I really like for especially short hair where it's really hard to get it in a foil, or you know, it's really hard to kind of balayage it, but you want lots of saturation. So these are your pixie clients, but this technique can also be done on long hair, which I'm going to show, is putting the lightener in a brush and brushing it. So when you have a client that has, you know, a really short pixie cut and they want brightness, it can be hard to foil that. So I'll put it in like a little round brush, and kind of just round brush roll through the tips of the hair. to give some brightness. So I'm also going to show you how you can do that and brush the ends of the hair to create a natural lightening effect on the ends. So you'll want to get it really nice and saturated, as you see. That is the trick to this. And when you do it, you'll just kind of brush it through. So some people like doing this brush method. So you just see what works for you. So yeah, you just brush it in like that. So it's really good for short hair. It makes it really easy. So I'll just grab some pieces and just brush the tips of this hair. And if you need to, like this area here, I can see, okay, I want that a little bit more blended. I'm just kind of going in and organically blending it. There's no right or wrong way to do hair. I always say that. It's all just technique and what works for you. So again, I'm just blending that in, creating some softness on the tips there. I'll do some of this hair here. So I want to go ahead and add a little bit more lightener into my brush. So this method, as you can see, has a lot less control than the original method, where we can weave and we can place in a foil and isolate. As you see, this is a lot more organic. So try them both, try them all, and see which one you like, which one works best for you. And sometimes it's situational, which one works best for that client and what they want, or with the time you have. You know, if they're wanting a really subtle brightening effect, it might be easy to just go in and freehand paint some pieces versus going in with foil and taking the time to weave the hair and fold the foils. So depending on what the client wants, you can use different techniques. So yeah, this one I particularly like just kind of on the ends. I wouldn't go through with this brush and start brushing into the scalp, because you're really not going to have control over that lightener at all at that point. So I would say if you're going to do the brush method, as you see, I typically just use it to brush the ends. So yeah, like these ends here, I'm like, okay, let's get a little bit more brightness. And it's super easy and just saturates the hair really nice. You can already see how this is going to look. I'm going to go in and add a couple pieces right here because I can see that it's a little unbalanced. But you can see where the lightning's going to be. You can see the nice blend. So I'm really excited to process this and see how it looks in the end. I'm gonna go in and add those couple pieces here and process for about 30 to 45 minutes. Depending on how long it takes to lift to a nice, I want to say level 9 or 10. And then I will be back with the results. All right, so this is our finished look. And it can be kind of hard to see because it's a doll head. But on this side, you can really tell because we didn't do this side. So you can really see the difference with that bang compared to this hair back here that wasn't done. So how it's just brightened up here around the face, how it transitions nicely from dark to light. And the other side is the side we did all the coloring on. So you can really see it here. That nice bright bang, right? With those nice pretty blonde pieces. And then how these ends got that really nice golden sun-kissed feel to them with brushing the lightning dust through. And then these really nice highlights in through here that were hand painted. All right, and that wraps up our balayage techniques. You can see how pretty and natural it really is. I hope that you guys found these techniques helpful and you're able to practice them behind the chair, start utilizing them, and see where they can be useful for you. Again, this is Colors by Gina. I hope that you guys enjoyed the several different balayage techniques I was able to teach today, and we'll see you guys next month for some more techniques.